diminished chord, whew! Where do we start? A mysterious sounding combination of notes that on its own can sound eerie and weirdly directionless, but in the right context, it can sound so good. Alright, so this example sounds a bit jazzy, but also in blues and pop music, it's pretty common, the diminished chord, as we'll see in this video. This magical chord is created by stacking 3 minor third intervals on top of each other. So from C, a minor third up, C, E flat, and G flat. But usually when we see diminished chords as such in music, these will be diminished 7th chords, where we add a 4th minor third interval. So it's C, E flat, G flat, and B double flat or A. Let's call it A for now, more on that later. So now we have 4 notes, and there's 3 fairly easy ways to play the diminished chord. In 3 ways: the root on the 6th like this, or the root on the A string like this, C diminished, or the root on the D string like this. So we have 3 shapes: C diminished, C diminished, and C diminished. So now we know the shape, very cool, but what do we do with it? How do we use it, and how can it spice up our boring chord progressions? So the most used implication of the chord is as a transition chord or a bridge chord. Listen to this. How good does that sound, right? The chord is just an F, a G, and an A minor, 3 very common chords, but in between of those chords we play diminished chords. It functions as a bridge between the F and the G, and in between the F and the G we find the F sharp or G flat, and on that note we play our diminished chord. So it's F major, then go to F sharp, diminished like this, 2, skip the A string, 1, 2, and 1 on D, G, and B, and then go to G major. So we have F, F diminished, G, wonderful, and we can do exactly the same from G to A minor. So what lies in between the G and the A minor? Well, the G sharp, so G, G sharp diminished to A minor. Very beautiful. What we create is a chromatic rising line in between the chords from F, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A minor. I'm such a good singer. Anyway, you get the idea, I guess. And one thing that's particularly awesome about the diminished chord is that when you slide it up 3 frets, we still have the same chord. The 4 notes that make up the chord don't change, only the order shifts around. So let's say we grab a C diminished over here. So now the notes are C, G flat, A, and E flat. If I move it up, the notes are E flat, A, C, and G flat. If I move it up, it's G flat, C, E flat, and A. So it's 3 times the same notes. And I keep on going, it stays the same. So although technically we have a different root note in the chords, 9 out of 10 times they are interchangeable because it's a bit, it's a quite ambiguous chord. You can just move it around. This is an example. F, F sharp dim, G, G sharp dim, G sharp dim, G sharp dim, G sharp dim, and to A minor. So we can walk that chord up the entire neck. It's super cool. If you're wondering on what chords you can do this, there's multiple ways you can do it, but I guess we see it mostly when you're playing the 4 chord and then going up 1 semitone, playing the sharp 4 as a dim chord basically. So let's say we're in the key of A major. This is the 1 chord. The 4 chord is always just 1 string down. So A major, D major, and then we can play D sharp diminished. So suddenly the sun starts shining. Sorry if I'm a bit blown out. So any music lover will recognize this as a song, Need Your Love So Bad. It's A, and we go to A7, O, E, to D, and then D sharp diminished. Lovely progression. Close that curtain for you. Yeah, that's better. Also in songs like Nobody Knows When You're Down and Out, this is played by Clapton. So we go from C, E, A, 7th, D minor, A7, and D minor, and then to the 4 chord F, 4 diminished, 4 sharp diminished, so F, F sharp, and back to the 1. So that's very common. 4 chord, 4 sharp diminished, and then back to the 1. So now it doesn't function as a bridge chord from 4 to sharp 4 to 5, but from 4 to sharp 4 to 1. So it's very cool. Another thing we see in blues is playing it on the 1 chord. So just the 1/7. So let's say an E7th chord, and then go to E diminished. So it's E7th, E diminished, and back to E7. So that's how we see it a lot in blues, super nice. And the way I played it in the beginning as a bridge chord, it happens a lot from 4 to 5 and from 5 to the 6. So let's say we're in the key of C major, the 4 chord is F. So from the 4 to 5 is from F to G. In between we find the F sharp, so F major, F sharp diminished, G major. That's 1 from 4 to 5, and then we can do from 5 to the minor 6th chord as well. So it's G major to A minor, G major, and in between lies the A flat or G sharp. So we play that chord as a diminished, and then we walk up to A minor. Beautiful. So the same thing happens in the song Blackbird, which is in G major. So we play G major, we get to the 4 chord, and then we walk to the 5 chord, the D, and then we walk to the 6th chord, the E minor. So it's C, D, E minor, and in between he plays the C sharp dim, D, D sharp dim, and then to E minor. So it's the same thing, it's beautiful. And one thing I like to mention is that the chord is also a bit of a dominant 7th chord, but then with a flat 9 added. So you could always use it to resolve back to the 1 chord from the 5 chord. And you can basically use any of the 4 notes from the diminished chord and resolve back to 1 semitone higher from that note. So this gives us 4 resolutions from just 1 chord, which is just awesome. So if we see it as a G7th with a flat 9, it typically resolves to C. C minor or major, could be both. Or if we see it from D and up, so fret 3 on the B string, we can resolve to E flat. Exactly. Sounds good as well, right? So let's take the first string, which is a G sharp, and that can resolve to A major. Sounds good, right? And then we have the 4th string left, which is an F, that can resolve to G flat. So that one chord shape can resolve to 4 different chords, so it's super versatile. And I guess that's the crash course into diminished 7th chords. A very fun chord, the options really are limitless as you saw, and it can really deepen your sound. It's very interesting stuff. So next up maybe the diminished scale, so how do we play over these chords, right? No, very interesting. Tabs for some of these examples I played are available at my Patreon page, so if you like what I do, feel free to check it out, and it's linked just below that like button. And if you learned something today, gently hit that button, that's much appreciated. So have a wonderful day. This is Blown Out Paul, because the sun starts shining in the winter in Holland. Who can imagine? Cheers, see you in the next video, bye. So this last bit is for the theory nerds who made it to the end. So in the beginning I called the C diminished chord C, E flat, G flat and B double flat. And I wanted to explain why I did that, I forgot. So here's that explanation. So theoretically, technically, the diminished 7th interval is the minor 7th interval, which is a flat 7th, but then lowered by 1 semitone extra. So double flat 7th interval, which enharmonically is the same as the 6, but if you want to do it correctly or officially, you should call it a double flat 7th. So a 1, a flat 3, a flat 5, and a double flat 7th. Or if you're reasonable like me, just call it a 6, nobody cares. Cheers.